Thanks for attending. Here I'm going to talk about the state of the Nuxt content. Some of you might know me, but many of you might not. My name is Birang. I'm working at the Nuxt lab. I'm the maintainer of the Nuxt content and also contributor in the Nuxt and NJS organization. So what is the Nuxt content? Before we go through all the new features, we need to know what's the Nuxt content. Nuxt content is a file-based content management system which reads your source files from the content directory in your projects. The module reads and parses Markdown, YAML, JSON, and CSV files and converts them to the readable format, which we call it AST or Abstract Syntax Tree. In order to access all the contents in the production environment, Nuxt Content stores all the parsed contents in an internal file-based data storage. The module provides a powerful query layer for your projects. The query layer in Nuxt 2 is similar to query syntax of MongoDB. Also in Nuxt version 2, we introduced Markdown component syntax, or MDC. MDC is a superset of Markdown that allows you to use Vue components inside Markdown files. You can pass attributes and properties to your Vue components in the inline format or using a rich YAML structure, just like front matter for the Markdown itself. Also, MDC allows you to pass different slots, the contents to different slots of your components, just like what we used to do in the Vue. And also nesting components inside each other. MDC has lots of more features, which can, for example, using MDC, you can add attributes to native Markdown syntax, like links. Currently, Nuxt contents have around 200K monthly downloads on the NPM. According to the GitHub, 30K projects depends on the Nuxt content. Almost 3.1K stars on the GitHub, and more than 200 contributors helps us to achieve what we have right now. In order to create Nuxt content version 3, we kept only the content parser logic and rebuild everything else in order to achieve better development experience and higher performance. Here we are going to see some of the key features and new things the content module version 3 has. First, let's talk about the important content collections. Content collections are a way to manage your content in the application. Content collections help you to organize your contents, define a structure for your contents, and validate them. It also provides types for your data and front matter for your Markdown and YAML files, also other files. Let's assume we are building a website for commercial products. For a fully functional website, we have to create different type of pages. Surely we need some landing pages like main page or a landing page for a marketing campaign. Let's go simple and assume that we only have a title and the content for these pages. Next, we need some release pages to inform our customers about the latest changes of our product. A release should have a title, a release date might have a tag, a relative tag like LTR, LTS, or etc. And of course, main notes about the release. Next, we might have a blog posts. A blog post should have a title, the author or list of authors, might have a cover image, it has a publish date, and finally, it sure has an actual article. Traditionally, using the content v2, we are creating these different type of pages in different directories in our projects. to make them maintainable and categorize them. We took the same idea and improved it in the content V3. Right now, for each of page types, we can create a collection. We can define a different schema for each of collections. And as a result, we will have a proper types for each collection in our application. Let's see how we can create collections. In order to create collections, we have created a new config file in the content module. We call it content.config.ts. Using this config file, you can expose your collections and define them. In order to define our very first collection, we can use a define collection utility from the Nuxt Content. Every collection in the content module have a different types. Types determine how we going to use our contents in the collections. By setting type to page, we are telling Nuxt Content that we are going to use these contents as a page in our websites. By doing so, Nuxt Content will provide some default fields for us for this collection, like title, description, like body of the whole page, and the SEO methods. Next, we need to define the source for our collection. The sources are places that our real Markdown files, our pages, are going to be read. As you can see here, we are using a glob pattern to fetch the contents from blog directory. Glob patterns gives us more control over the input files, and it can be easily changed to import Markdown, YAML, JSON, or any files. And we can provide a schema for our collection. As you can see in the example, here we only define the cover, data, and the list of our authors. But blog post has the title and content. Those two fields will inherit from the page type from content module. And next, we can define our other collections. Now we have every collections we need to. We can go further and write our first blog post. So as you can see, this is our first blog post, and we can define our fields, the cover, date, and authors in the front matter of our file. The next important thing in the content module is that content module stores everything inside the relational database. A relational database helps us to separate the contents of each collection into different tables, which gives us, as a result, better performance in query. In the development mode and the server side, we are using SQLite. SQLite is great for development since it's lightweight and does not require any server or external services to start up for development. And creating a SQLite is easy as creating a file. However, in the production, we are supporting the famous relational databases like Postgres or Cloudflare D1 if you want to deploy your application into Cloudflare workers. You can still use a SQLite database in the production. In the client side, we did go further and we brought SQLite databases to the client side navigation. So now in client-side navigation, module will use in-memory SQLite database to search for contents. This technique will remove the round-trip time for fetching the contents from the server, and the content will be found faster. Next, let's talk about some utilities we are created in the content V3. As we saw before, Nuxt Content stores contents in collections and uses relational database under the hood to do so. We created utility to simplify this query creation and execution. Query collection is aware of collection type, and the result is fully typed. Using the query collection navigation, we can create navigation tree for our collections. Using the surroundings utility, we can find the previous and next siblings of our current page, our current content. And finally, we are introducing new utility that splits content into different sections, different searchable sections. Using these sections, we can easily implement our own full text search with our favorite library. Nuxt version 3, Nuxt Content version 3 comes with lots of improvement in performances and bundle size. First, an important one, that we moved all the reading and the parsing logic out of Nuxt runtime. The module now reads the file before starting the server, and the parsing happens even at the build time and before starting the server. This is important for the serverless environment since they have limited resources. For the same reason, we store the content dumps in a public assets rather than the server bundle. The dump size can grow with the increase of content files, and this is a big drawback for the big websites to deploy in the serverless environments. Using the relational databases in production reduces the CPU time of the application in the serverless environment. And minifying parse contents is another action we took to reduce the database size and network payload. Depends on the contents and the content of your contents, the type of your content. Minifying can reduce between 30 to 60% of the content size. Nuxt Content version 2 is not all about the developers and development experience. There is also good news for non-developers, content editors. We are merging Nuxt Content with Nuxt Studio to provide the best editing experience for non-tech users and better tooling for developers to provide such experience. So next time, you don't need to explain Markdown syntax to your colleagues. Anyone can edit content with our visual editor. So there are lots of things that change in Nuxt version 3, but with all we have seen till now, we can have a quick compare between Nuxt version 2 and see the improvement in Nuxt version 3. Landing files, loading files in the version 3 happens at the build time. And with the content collections, you have more control over the contents. And in other words, the files in the content version 3 are structured. Also, parsing logic moved out of the runtime. And with our minified ASD, the size of contents are smaller and the payload of the website is smaller. With the use of relational databases, there is no need to access to file system and store data in the server bundle. So server bundle will be smaller. And relational databases are optimized for querying data. That's what they do. So this will help us to improve the query performances. And also using the external services for querying will reduce the CPU time of our application. So what's next? These are what we've done in the Nuxt content till now, but there is a lot to do in the content V3. With the power of relational databases, we can create relations between the collections. Imagine having a collection of authors that can connect to your articles, or assigning a relative topics to your documentation. With the new features, with the new syntax in the collections schema, we can achieve this. Also, every now and then, users ask about how we can parse a specific field as a markdown. For example, the description of the page. They want to use markdown in the description of the page. Well, I have the good news. With the power of the collections, we can now mark a field in the data as a markdown field. And Nuxt Content will automatically parse this field with the markdown and NDC syntax. Build-time validations will make sure that the contents contain everything we need at the runtime. We can mark fields as optional, and all the non-optional fields will be required at the build time. And if they are missing, the build will fail. Also, Nuxt Content and MDC module has a VS Code extension. Now, our VS Code extensions can leverage collections schema to provide suggestions for markdown files inside the VS Code. Last but not least, with the integration of the Nuxt Hub and using the feature of Nuxt Hub migrations, Content module can update the production database during the CI pipelines. This is important to update database before actually running the application in the serverless environment. This is improve the performance of the cold start in the serverless environment tremendously. Check out the content3.nuxt.dev website for the documentation and check out the V3 branch for the source of the content V3. Give us some feedbacks to improve the content V3 and reach the best performance as possible.
Hey,
Thank you for attention.
did you have a few slides towards the end? We weren't sure if you had ended your share screen before your slide deck was done.
Oh, can I share it now? Good.
Yeah,
I don't
just to
know.
make if you want to reshare it, just to make sure that we didn't miss anything for you. It sounded like it was your last couple slides. Yeah, your thank you. If you want to go back a few slides and do that again, I think this is about the slide that we were at when it disappeared.
Okay, this one, the MDC field, so
Yeah,
build
so
time
maybe if you
validations.
can share your deck in Veto, if you have a link to it, just so that way everybody can check it out. We don't want
Yeah,
them to miss any of those details or how to reach out to you.
so I will share the slides afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you. We do have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
All right. So, can the source be an external API? How to set up the configuration in this case?
So yeah, exactly. The sources, the main source of the Nuxt content is file storages, but we also have the Git repository source for our collections. For example, Nuxt.com right now uses a Git repository as a source. We will have the same in the content version 3, and also in future there will be a possibility to write a custom collections and custom sources. For example, some sources might be used to fetch the WordPress contents, WordPress articles, and provide it for the Nuxt content.
Great. Thank you. All
But
right.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go
Sorry.
on.
Didn't mean to cut you off.
Now, but right now, even before we are going to implement those helpers, the sources structure in the Nuxt content is simply some configs. So if you have external API, you can fetch your contents, store it in a dump a dummy, a template directory, and use that directory to feed the Nuxt content database.
Great. Thank you. All right, next one. Does Nuxt Content work with Nuxt SPAs?
Yes, uh, as I told you in the slides, we are using SQLite in the browser. So with this feature in the SPA mode, the Nuxt content will fetch the whole dump of your of database, and from that point, everything we need to navigate between in the sites exists in the client side and in the browser. So it's perfect for SPA modes.
Thank you. All right, last question. How does Nuxt Content handle large scale deployments, particularly at the edge?
So like I said, in the content v3, we removed everything, almost everything from the server bundle and kept the rendering part in the server bundle. And for most of the parts, we optimize it to work smoothly and with low overhead on the serverless environments. The dump will live now in the public assets, which is a big improvement for the serverless environments. So basically in the server environments right now, when the request hit to the server, we get the file from the public, get the dump from public assets, load it, and the cold start is way faster than before because this dump is compressed, it's small sized, and also with use of the databases like D1, for example, in the Cloudflare storage or Postgres storage for the Vercel, it's only the first time when you need to fetch the dump and import it to the database. The next hits will retrieve the data right from the database.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your
Yeah,
time today, Ahad. We greatly
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.